Welcome to the Farmish Kind of Life podcast, where we talk about homesteading stuff and life stuff and everything in between. Join me, Amy Dingman, as we explore big questions on a little farm. Hello, everybody, and welcome back to the Farmish Kind of Life podcast. Today is October 10th, 2024. This is episode 293. How are you all today? Today, we are going to be talking about community and helping each other. And I know it's a really big topic right now because we've got all these hurricanes that are hitting. And, so you might think that's why I want to talk about it. But this topic has actually been on my list for a while now as it relates to small-scale, day-to-day issues. We are going to take a look at the importance of building in-person communities and what the struggles are in doing that, and a few things we might need to wrap our heads around in order to make this whole in-person community thing work. And I have talked about this before on the podcast, but it's been a minute, so we are going to revisit it again. But before we get to that big old main topic, what has been happening on the Lifestead? Well, this podcast episode this week is posting a little bit later than normal. Usually I do Tuesdays. This is coming out on Thursday, and that is because I was gone for a long weekend. I went over to Wisconsin to celebrate a very special family member and an accomplishment of his. My cousin Carter finished writing a children's book. He is 22. He's very, very special. I've talked about him before on the podcast, and today I am shouting him out because Carter has had a dream in his 22 years of life that he wanted to be a children's book author. And he finally finished his book. It's called Carter's Haircut. His mom helped him to get it printed, and then they decided to have a book release party. And so a bunch of friends and relatives came to celebrate Carter. And he did a speech, and he read his book, and then he signed a copy of every book for the people that had come to the party. So it was just really, really awesome to be there. And Carter, we are all very proud of you. There are so many people in the world that say they're going to do something and they don't get it done. They set a goal and they don't get it done, and you did it. So that is awesome. So it was really fun to be at that party to celebrate Carter and just how everybody came together for his special day. So that was fun. So that is why the podcast is a little late this week, but that's okay. What else has been happening on the Lifestead? Well, the soup series that I talked about doing on my website and on YouTube, it's going strong. We are having so much fun making those soups and making videos and getting them out for you. Let's see, we've had pizza soup, we've had bean bacon chowder, we've had a roasted tomato soup, we've had squash soup. We've got so many soups coming up. So check that out on my website or on YouTube. I post new stuff Monday, Wednesday, Friday. So check that out if you want some soup inspiration. What else? It's been all about the kitchen lately. I put in a lovely order from Amazon to get some new kitchen gadgets that I have had my eye on for quite a while. Some people were saying it was like spooky month Christmas because everything arrived on the same day. Other people said I was doing some apocalypse shopping. I was just like, no, these are things I have had on my list for a while, and I finally had the funds to make a big order. So I'm super excited to try out my new KitchenAid attachment grain mill so I can do some cornmeal and some flour and different stuff like that. I also got pasta, the attachment for that. And I got knockoff attachments. I did not get the name brand KitchenAid attachment. I got a little bit cheaper just to see if it's actually something that I'm going to use. There's the idea of, doing your pasta noodles and grinding your own grain. There's the idea of that, right? And then there's the actual doing of it. So if it's something that I decide, yep, this is something I want to do, I may invest in something a little more sturdy. I don't know. We'll see what happens. I also got a new Instant Pot. I used to have a knockoff Instant Pot for many, many years. And man, we use that thing all the time. And it died about 6 months ago. And I finally was like, you know what? I need that in my life again. It was the best way to make rice. It was the best way to make hard-boiled eggs, among other things. But we used it all the time. So the kitchen has some fun new things in it. Other than that, what's been happening? I'm just about to plant garlic here, so that's very exciting. Finally remembered to order the garlic, and I'm going to remember to put it in the ground, so that is cool. I'm going to be trying to grind up the gem corn that I have into cornmeal and flour. I have a bunch of apples to process that I got from my mom, so this is just a busy time of year. Lots of stuff going on, so lots of stuff to do, but very, very thankful to have the opportunity to do all those things. We also did our first attempt at breeding the rabbits. So hopefully in 30-ish days, the end of October, there will be babies. But I don't know, because everybody was new at it. So we'll see if we have Halloween rabbits, babies, or maybe we need to try again. I don't know, try again. It's fine. All right, with that, we're going to head over to the main topic and talk about who you're going to call when you need help. And it's not the Ghostbusters, you guys. I grew up at a time where if my mom was baking and realized that she was short an ingredient, she wanted to make something and she thought, I don't have any sugar, I don't have enough sugar, I don't have enough flour, we would call the neighbor who lived across the road and we would ask, do you have a cup of sugar or a cup of flour that we could borrow? And then I would walk across the road or they'd walk across the road and we'd get the sugar or the flour that we needed. And so this whole phrase, having people that you can go borrow a cup of sugar from, that's an actual thing that used to happen. Maybe some of you are young enough that you don't remember that time or never experienced that. But it was a thing. Maybe it's still a thing. I don't know. But so my question for you is, if you need to borrow a cup of sugar, do you have someone you can ask? I have another question for you. If you are stuck somewhere because of bad roads or a medical emergency or something, you can't get home, do you have someone you can call to let your dogs out or to put your chickens away for the night? Do you have someone you can call who would do that? Here's another question to think about. If you break down on the side of the road, you have vehicle trouble, do you have someone you can call who will come to help you? Besides any business that is there, for that purpose, do you have someone that you can call and be like, hey, stuck on the side of the road, got a problem? Do you have someone you can call who will come to help you? Now, some of us have extensive communities of people who exist online in Facebook groups and Telegram chats and Discord servers. I'll tell you what, I have met some of the most awesome people online, and some of those people I consider to be really, really good friends. Now, and I am so thankful for the opportunity to build communities of people online to share knowledge and share encouragement all over this great big mass that we live on, right? But here's the thing. I can't borrow a cup of sugar from 99% of those people. I can't call them to let my dogs out if I'm stuck somewhere. I can't call them to rescue me from the side of the road. And that's okay, as long as I also have a community of people that I can call for those things. I think online communities are so amazing. A lot of you are in my online communities, right? And I love them. But it's really, 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 really important that we also build and maintain relationships with people who exist locally, in person, face-to-face, outside of a screen. And we all need this reminder, myself included. Y'all know that I do podcast episodes when I'm like, this is something that I'm feeling convicted about, so we need to talk about it because I bet you all need to hear it too. And I know right now that hurricane relief efforts and everything that's going on with that, and other situations too, all those things right now show that in disaster situations, people will step up to help folks that they don't even know. And that's awesome and that's amazing, and I love seeing those stories. They make me smile every time that I see it. But in the everyday, in the small things, in life's little minor hiccups, in all honesty, do you know who you would call if you needed in-person help right now? And would those people show up for the task? Because there is nothing worse than being in a situation where you need a helping hand and realizing you don't even know who you would call. I talk a lot about community on this podcast, and I talk about how it's really important to build a community of folks around you, right? And I've said a million times already, I love online communities because they're easy. It's easy to talk to people. It's easy to share information. It's very convenient, right? But I'm going to say this again and again and again. You need to have an in-person community. And while I was pondering this topic and making notes, for what this podcast was going to be, a reader of mine actually emailed me with a story that fit perfectly into this topic. And he gave me permission to share part of the email with you all on the podcast. So I'm going to share part of it here, okay? He said, "The other day, I suffered a pretty bad injury at work, and it's unclear as to how long I will be out. What I've thought about most in the past couple days is the lack of community where my wife and I live. We live in a metro area of North Carolina, and between COVID and the just not very friendly people here, we have found it difficult to make friends. This has been something I've struggled with since we moved from a more rural area of the Northeast. The current and past political landscape has created even less sense of community than I ever remember. This injury really brought it to the forefront for me. As I was laying in the emergency room, I was thinking about who could we call to go let the dog out. There was no one. Who could I call to help my wife out with the list of chores? There's no one. For the first time in a long time, I and we really were alone." So that was his email. And I just thought, what a terrible feeling, right? To be sitting there and to need help and feeling like you don't have anyone you can call. What a very lonely realization. So I think that's something to think about on both sides of that. If you're the person laying in the ER thinking, who can I call? I don't have anyone. Or if you're the person who's not in the ER and you could be that person who could help. There's two sides to look at this, and we'll get into it. I was thinking about this also when I was at my mom's farm a couple weeks ago. We started having a lot of get-togethers with me and my mom and my grandma and whatever other ladies of the family can come. And we eat food and we play games and we talk about a bazillion different things and we stay the night. And some of the conversations that we've had really get me thinking about how our go-to people have changed. Or that's what it appears to me. When I was younger, your go-to people were your family and your friends, and you just had this group of people. I saw my parents have this group of people. And I feel like our go-to people have changed. Our go-to people are further away. They are online. They are not in person. And I feel like our society is becoming so individualistic. Like we're all in our little caves. We're all in our little houses doing our thing. And we don't want to go out there because we don't like people, right? And we can do it ourselves. It's fine. I don't need anyone. Our society is becoming so individualistic and we celebrate the individual. And that spider webs out, into a lot of different things. Now, it's not to say that online communities that are spread out over a big geographic location aren't helpful, or that they don't serve a purpose. In all honesty, some of the people I talk to the most often are people I've only seen once or twice in my life. And some of them I've actually never met. And I adore some of these people. I count them as my really good friends. But I was thinking the other day, how weird would it be for someone 100 years ago, so 1924, to talk to someone in 2024 and find out that the vast majority of us spend the vast majority of our social time, some of us our work time, interacting with people that live behind a screen, people we've never met, people we've never actually shared an in-person cup of coffee with, people that we wouldn't even know if the screen didn't exist. You think the people from 1924 would be like, what? Like, I bet they would have such a hard time wrapping their head around that. Now, part of the issue, I think, with community, and who do you call when you need help? Who do you call when you need a cup of sugar? Who do you call when your car won't start? And who do you call, right? I think part of the issue is that we don't very often, a lot of us don't live close to our families anymore, right? When I was growing up, the vast majority of our family, I would say, lived within a half hour of our house. You could drive a half hour anyway, and you would reach a family member, okay? That's not true anymore. What used to be a phone call to mom or brother or grandpa or cousin Ed 75 years ago isn't a possibility anymore because family members can't just quick run over to your house anymore. The other thing is we don't know our neighbors. A lot of us don't know our neighbors. And I know people are like, I don't get along with my family. My neighbors are jerks. People are jerks. I hate people, right? That's where we always go. And we can get really super unicorn and rainbows about this and get really wistful about the old days and think everything was magical and happy. But here's the uncomfortable truth. There are people who will say that people are just more ick now. People are just jerks now. And they just suck. So I hate people. I'm not going out because people are terrible. But y'all, if you think that 75 years ago people all liked each other and were kissy best friends, you're nuts. You are lying to yourself. It is just easier now to say, I can't stand that person, so I'm not going to deal with them. And I'm going to go over to Telegram or Discord or Facebook and talk to people, my little group of people that I have cherry-picked because we all have the same interests. And I can create that little group of folks who, when someone doesn't quite fit anymore, we can just block them. We can just not return their messages, right? It's so easy to make a little group of people who are all basically the same. I mean, obviously we're all still different, but basically the same. And that's the really honest, tough part. It's hard to build an in-person community because we are people, and in-person people can be very different than online people, and we have the opportunity to be really picky with our online people. We can cherry pick everybody that we want. The world was smaller years ago. Communities were so very local. We weren't looking online for people who shared our specific vibe or felt the same way as us about XYZ. I also don't think that knowing your community or meeting your neighbors, we talk about this in this kind of community here online, the prepper, homesteader, whatever. We talk about knowing your community, building your community, meeting your neighbors, knowing who's out there. It doesn't mean you have to be best friends. It doesn't mean you have to hang out with each other every weekend. That's not what it means. It can mean that, but just putting yourself out there and knowing that y'all exist to each other, that's a step in the right direction. Doesn't mean you need to be besties. And I know I'm kind of skipping around with some thoughts here, but hopefully you can follow it. Back to the family thing, okay? I understand that some of you grew up in families that were super toxic, okay? It's a thing. Some of you have families that really suck. And there's just a lot of stuff going on there, okay? I don't want anyone to be offended by this or take it the wrong way, but people have been broken forever. And it is not a contest to see who had the hardest childhood. Your job is to move yourself forward. If your mom or your dad or your brother or your grandpa or your aunt are truly terrible, sucktastic people, and some of them are, then find the people in your family who aren't. And if you can't, then build yourself a little family. But for Pete's sake, make some of those people who actually know your address, who know where the key is to get into your house, who would be willing to go feed your dog or your chicken or your horse if you can't get home, who would lend you their extra car for a weekend while yours is in the shop, who would pick your kids up from school if you suddenly ended up in the ER. We need those people in our life, and we don't think about it until we're in the situation where we're like, well, crap, who am I going to call? That's a terrible situation to be in. I mean, your heart just sinks when you're like, I have no one that I can call that can help me with this. And you need more than one of these people, right? Because if you're in a bind and you call someone and they can't help you because they've got something else going on that they can't get away from or choose not to get away from, that doesn't necessarily mean that they're a terrible person. That's not for you to decide. We need to have more than one person that we can call for a cup of sugar, metaphorically speaking. I also want you to think not only who would you call if you need a cup of sugar, but who would you bring a cup of sugar to? Who are you willing to do that for? Who can call you at 2 a.m. and you will answer the phone and help them with whatever disaster they need help with? Who are those people for you? Here's another uncomfortable part. Sometimes it's easier to help people who aren't in our circle. Because for some reason, stepping out of our circle to help gets us more brownie points or gives us a different feel-good. I remember years ago, there was an organization in town that was looking for people to come volunteer to play cards with people at the nursing home, right? And I was thinking, oh my gosh, it'd be so neat to sign up to be a volunteer at the nursing home to play cards with some of the residents. Wouldn't that be fun? Wouldn't that be so great? And yeah, it would be great. But at the same time, I had a grandpa who probably really would have enjoyed having me come and sit and play cards with him while he sat at home. Why does it feel better to do that for someone we don't even know than doing it for the people who are closer to us? Do you know what I'm saying? Like, it would really suck to be the older person in Amy's life who could use Amy's company for an afternoon, but then Amy decides that it's cooler to go help John and Susie at the local nursing homes, who she doesn't even know, when older person in Amy's life is lonely and depressed because they're immobile or can't get out to go anywhere and they stare at their four walls every day and night. So what do you do if you're not meeting anyone? You're like, I have tried. I really want to build community, and the people I'm finding, like, it's just not working, or they're not friendly, or it's just like, it's so much harder than I thought it was going to be. Like, what do you do when you feel like you've put out the effort, but you're just really not connecting with anyone? I really want your suggestions on this. I really, really do. Find me on social media and give me your suggestions, or email me at amy@afarmishkindoflife.com. I'm also going to ask this question in my email newsletter, so you can respond to that. So I really want your suggestions. How did you build your in-person community? What worked for you? What didn't? Having said that, I do have a few points that I want to put out there, okay? That I think sometimes we don't think about. Number one, building community takes a lot of work, and it takes a lot of time. It is not as easy as dropping into a Facebook group and adding your 2 cents to a few posts, and then ta-da, now I'm part of the community. And I think we have gotten so used to that. Like, now I have 1 million friends because I'm in these 5 groups and we all talk and it's awesome. And that was so easy to do because all you had to do was answer a few, like, posts. Like, someone posted a question, you answered it, and now we're buddies. Like, that's honestly how it works online, right? That's not how it works in real life. That's not how it works in person. It takes way more work and way more time. Number 2, community does not mean the entire town. We think of community, if we compare it to online, we have these ginormous groups of people where everybody's talking. Or even small groups. I have a group that I talk with almost every day. There's maybe 20 people in there that are really talking, and really, maybe 15 that are really conversing. 15 people in person? That's a totally different thing. 30 people in person is a totally different thing. 100, 1,000, totally different thing. But sometimes when we think about community, we think, oh, it's got to be huge. We need a huge network. Sometimes huge networks are awesome, but you're probably not going to have a huge network in person. Farm folks had communities, back in the day, and maybe even now. Farm folks have communities because they've lived there forever and everyone knew everyone, right? Small town, 6th generation of farmers, like everybody, nobody leaves a farm. It's just like this community, right? That's not as common anymore. But everyone knew everyone, in that situation because they were working together and they were churching together and they were doing picnics at the local whatever together over the course of years. Years. And it's almost like we want the tight-knit community that comes from years of work, but we want it as fast as it takes to join a Facebook group or a Telegram chat. That's not realistic in real life. That's not realistic in person. Number 3. Not everyone is at the same place as us in wanting to build that in-person community because they're just fine with their 4 walls. Or maybe they hate people and we are people, right? They're like, I don't need to meet people. And that person who's trying to build this community, that's a person. I hate people. Or they're good with their Facebook group or their Discord server or their Netflix. Or maybe they already think they have a tight-knit community. Maybe it's their coworkers. Maybe it's their group of dance moms, maybe, whatever. And maybe they do. Or maybe they think they do, and it hasn't really been tested yet. Number 4, we are picky. We look across the street, and we see that the house is owned by someone who's 40 years older than us, or 20 years younger than us, or they have 10 kids, or no kids, or they're clearly part of a super conservative religion, or they're clearly pagans, or they've got a Harris sign in their yard, or they have a Trump sign in their yard, or they have too many dogs, or they yell at their kids too much, or they let their kids do whatever they want, or a million other things. And we think, I don't even want to deal with that. Those people are not my people. And maybe they're not your people. Maybe you're not going to be best friends with them. But if there's a car accident and you need someone to go into your house and turn off the, I don't even know. Or you're outside and suddenly you don't know where your kid is. You can't find them. And you're like, oh my God, where did they go? Any of these situations that come up, none of that stuff is going to matter that the person across the street has a Trump sign or a Harris sign or they're 40 years older. None of that's going to matter. You're going to go over there and be like, oh my God, have you seen my kid? Or I have to leave. There's a family emergency. Would you be able to come over and do this at 8 o'clock tonight? I need someone to do that. Can you do that for me? And God forbid it hits the fan or the zombies come, because those people across the street or your local family and friends that are nearby, that's going to be what you have. Let's keep this in perspective. Another thing to keep in perspective, you can talk all you want to folks online, the folks at whatever group, the folks in your church, the folks wherever, whatever you consider your group to be. If you don't show up, if you're gone, if you're absent for a day, a couple weeks, then what? What happens? Do they notice? Maybe that's a bigger question here, because we're all involved in various places, right? Lots of different places, in person, online, whatever. When we aren't there, what happens? Does life continue on? Do people notice our absence? How long until they check in on us to find out, where have you been? If they even notice we're missing, do they have another way to reach you? If your friend disappears from a Telegram chat, do you have any other way to reach them? How long does it take for you to notice that your Telegram friend isn't there? You haven't heard from him in 3 weeks. Does it take 3 weeks? Do you just assume they're busy? How long does it take before you're like, hey, friend, haven't heard from you? These are things to think about when we think about who we're going to call. We surround ourselves with people all the time, whether that's online or in person, and we give them so much of our attention and so much of our brain space. We let them annoy us. We let that, like, they are in our brain, right? Who are you going to call when you need something? Will it be those people? Now, this is just all stuff to get you thinking. It's stuff I need to think about just as much as anybody else. So if you can't make it home or you have an emergency or whatever situation, who are you going to call? Honestly, make a list. Write these people down, because if you don't have anyone you can call to help you with an in-person issue, you have a problem, and it's probably a bigger problem than you realize. If you take one thing from this episode, it's that you need to build relationships and maintain relationships. You may be someone who has a lot of people in your life. You got all these people, or maybe you're someone who has a really small group of people that you consider your people, your go-to people. I don't care which it is, as long as you're honest about it. And as long as you're putting the work in to keep those relationships in working order. Maybe that means you're talking to someone on the phone every day. Maybe it means you wave to your neighbors, okay? You remind them you are there. Maybe you bring them a plate of cookies once a month. I don't know. I'm just supposing here. The point is, it takes time and work to build relationships. Time and work to build relationships and maintain them. So start now. And if you feel pushed off by one person, try another. And yes, when it hits the fan or there is a big disaster, we are often filled with this huge desire to go help if we can. There are so many people right now with the hurricanes going on and everything that has happened. There's so many people that want to help, and that's awesome. And that's what makes us as a people I just love it, right? That's what gives me hope. But if you are stuck in the emergency room and you don't know who to call to let your dogs out or feed your cats or pick your kid up from school, that's a really rough place to be. It's not as big as a hurricane, but it's still an issue you're facing in your life that needs a solution. And you need to start working on fixing that now. There you have it. Those are my thoughts for this week. I would love to know how you build community, what you've tried, what's worked, if you've struggled with it, like how has building community happened for you? Because it's not easy and it's not quick. So it's something we definitely need to get started on now so you have people when you need them. And it's just as much of a call for you to be the kind of people that will help and that will help people build those communities and make sure that people have what they need, not just in hurricanes, but in everyday life, in everyday stuff. So drop me an email or find me on social media or wait for my email newsletter to come out. You can just respond to that. Remember to head over to my YouTube channel or my website, afarmishkindoflife.com, and check out the soup series that I've got going on right now. There's so many soups. They're much, much, much delicious. That was some weird grammar that I just used. I don't know. Clearly, I need to get some coffee in me and get this episode out for you to listen to. So thank you so much for joining me here today. I hope that this topic was helpful or at least got you thinking about some things. I will talk to you again soon. Hope you enjoyed the show today. To continue the conversation, visit our website at afarmishkindoflife.com. Find A Farmish Kind of Life on social media or drop me an email at amy@afarmishkindoflife.com. Peace, love, and bacon, y'all. Stay farmish.